I oversee the Texas Digital Newspaper Program hosted on the Portal to Texas History. And in this work, we digitize Texas newspapers from any date and time in the state of Texas. These newspapers represent any date starting with 1813 as our earliest year, which might be a strange date to those of you who know Texas history, because 1813 was not a year in which Texas was a state. It was a place, though, that published a lot of newspapers, and it was actually a part of Spain. Newspapers we host discuss Texas history and events happening in Texas at that time. And today I'm going to walk you through working with the Portal to Texas History. What I just did on the left-hand navigation side was to filter through to look at specific dates going to 1813 as I was talking to you. Now, when I pulled this up, it shows me a calendar of different years and dates, and that's a great way if you're looking for a specific time period to find an ancestor or a specific date, especially for an obituary or a wedding or a birth announcement, you can find that information. Begin working with the Texas Digital Newspaper Program, if you have a couple of ideas of names and information, you can type those in. So for instance, I have an ancestor who was named F.E. Kramer, but I don't actually know where he was in Texas at a time. So I'm going to start with a basic single word. When you're working with a single word, you don't have to use quotation marks. Let's just see what we can find here. Now, I know for a fact that my ancestor was in Texas during the 1800s, but I need to figure out which city he was in. Now, let's go ahead and see. I'm pretty sure he came through Galveston around the 1880s, and I can see under my results, when I click here by decade on the left-hand side, working with these materials, I can see that there are a lot of results for the 1880s. And this might give me an idea of where he and his family traveled across. Ah, El Paso. Okay, so maybe my sister was in El Paso. I see that I have 14 results. Those are 14 issues of newspapers where the term Kramer occurred. And if I click on this first one for February, let me see what I can find. Now, when I go to this issue, it shows me a little bit of descriptive information here. And I see over here, the search inside, the name Kramer, and that there's one matching result. Now, whenever you put in a search, you can click on these matching results, and it will take you immediately to the page where your search term appears. And this is going to be sequence 5, page 5. And you can click on that. And let's see, in yellow, I have here highlighted my ancestor's name. And I need to zoom in because that's very hard to read. So I will click in that bar in the upper right-hand corner. And look at that, I can drag the page over. Now it's still very hard to see. So I'm going to use this plus and minus sign in the upper right-hand corner and kind of zoom in to see what's going on here. Oh, look, notice is given that a co-partnership existing until now under the name of Cooper is dissolved. Well, now I want to know a little more about F.E. Kramer and H.H. Cooper. I have a little more information besides just the last name. Fortunately for me, my last name has a weird spelling, so it's very easy to find. That is a luxury. That's on my dad's side. My mom's side are all Smith and Peters, which is much more difficult. I'd like to save this, so I'm going to click on permalink, and I will copy the URL and either email it to myself or save it in my database. But if I wanted to share it over social media, I could do that too with these easy buttons. And when I also do so, I can print it. And when I print, there is a citation at the bottom that appears. And that's very easy because then if I need to see what's going on, go back and see this again. I don't have to look through microfilm. I can just open up the URL that I saved for myself. And I can either print it as a PDF and save that image in an electronic file, or I can print it in physical paper. When I'm done, I can close this window and I can go back to standard view and look at other results where the name Kramer appears with this strange spelling. Now, if I'm still interested in finding F.E. Kramer, but I don't want to necessarily find where he was in the 1880s, I could either click on this red X and get rid of that, but I'm still not sure on the decades. So I'd like to see a little more about F.E. Kramer for sure. In the upper right-hand corner of the portal to Texas history, there's a search box. And for genealogists, I always recommend proximity search for newspapers because that is the easiest way to locate your ancestors with multiple words involved. Now, F.E. Kramer, and then I'm still interested in Cooper. I want to know a little bit more about that. I'm going to type in the F.E. part because I know that was his name, F.E. Kramer. And then I know Cooper is another word that appeared, another person's name. And I'm telling this to search within a certain number of words of each other and pull up for me all the occurrences of these words appearing together in the newspaper sentence. So I'm going to choose 7. For genealogy research, I always recommend between 5 and 10 words of each other. So let's look at 7. And this will be just by best match for the selection, and then you can just do full text of the item. Since newspapers are so rich in text, it's very easy. Oh, look at that. So it did that. Maybe I need to decomplicate my search. I'm going to pull out the FE, and I'll just have Kramer and Cooper in here, and we'll see what we have. I want to know about the business they were running. What kind of partnership did they have? Look at that. All right, we found 2 instances, and it doesn't look like these were ones that I've already visited. Oh, it is. I did visit that one. That was the first issue I looked at, and it has a check mark next to it. The Portal to Texas History keeps track of what you've visited so that you know if you've already opened it. But now we have a new entry. Let's look at February 2nd, 1888. And we can, again, we see this very small view, but we can go to matching results. And under the sequence, I get a little more information. And this is going to be another announcement in public notice about the dissolution of their partnership. And let's go ahead and see on the page where it occurs, and that will appear in yellow. All right, so that's in the bottom right-hand corner now. And I'm going to zoom in here. And scroll down, and I just drag with my mouse. And again, I can read the text. Now, if I wanted to continue finding out a little more, I could look up H.H. Cooper himself, and that gives some information. When I'm looking at weddings, I have good luck searching for the surname plus the event, which is also helpful, particularly with obituaries. The other thing that I like to be able to do is, if with proximity search, if I need to find information about someone attending an event, but I don't know what the event is, I will insert the surnames where I know that they should go together, and then I'll give a little more distance between the names. And I'm going to use 15 words where the terms Rives and Smith occur. I am looking specifically for a place in West Texas and to find out where the Rives and Smith pairing may have. And I know for a fact that I'm looking for one particular title. So I'm going to click on title and I will type in the one I want, or I could have selected it because it occurs. It occurs very. Oh, if you could mute your microphone. And now we see we've got 76 occurrences in Shamrock, Texas, which I knew I was looking for. And I'm looking for one specific decade because still 70 is a lot of results. I want to look at the 1950s. See what we have here. On October 11th, 1951, I can see that the terms Rob and Smith occurred within 15 words of each other at least one time in this newspaper, and we're going to go visit. Ah, okay, we have something going on. The Rives and Smith surnames. Oh, they were in a club together. So now I've found that these two people were participating in clubs, and now I have a lot more names to go with on these words to find other people who were working together from
2
the family
minutes.
members and the the events they participated in. Douglas Rives, I know, is related to Don Rives. Mrs. Douglas Rives and Mrs. Don Rives were in-laws. So I need to figure out Mrs. Alice Smith of McLean. She came from McLean. This just gives such a wealth of information, being able to do, and then I'm able to pair these names up later if I need to find a little more information. Now we've looked at 1991. I'm curious about, we looked at this. Let's see. Have I seen this issue yet? I'm not sure if I have. Ah, okay. Now we have a wedding. So now the Smith and Rives family have gotten married. And we look on this page to see where the yellow is. What do we have here? Okay, this is Bible lesson, so probably not that, though Mrs. George Smith had a meeting at her home. But I believe up here is what I want to know. Okay, we have Miss Joe Smith and Doug Rives, and that was a different Doug than the Mrs. Douglas. But we have a little more information about these people. This is how you can get in and try to find people in ways where you need one event, but you need to get more names of who was working with your ancestors to try to locate their information. And the nice thing is you can also later use it if you close out of the decade using the X mark, but you still want to know. Let's look at a later decade to see if there's anything else about them and what went on 10 years later for them. And we can see where we are. It looks like we've got meetings again, but these give a good sense of who people were working with, how they were working together. You can zoom in here.
Please proceed to your next class.
All right. Have fun, and thank you so much for joining us.